Okay, this is the second time I'm shooting this video, and it's not exactly an easy topic to cover because I would be somebody biased, and unfortunately this topic seems to be cropping up a lot lately simply because of the swearing into Congress of the new representative Rashida Tlaib, as well as a number of other Congress people who have similar issues that have become really public uproars. So it would be her, it would be Ilhan Omar from Minnesota, Tlaib is from Michigan, and Ocasio-Cortez to a lesser extent. They're all being criticized for their connection to the BDS movement, their opposition to the BDS bill in Congress, as well as a number of their statements about Israel. Now, I want to make it clear, I am a freedom of speech almost an absolutist. I would call myself a civil libertarian, and in many ways an economic libertarian. And I don't think that necessarily the things that she says should be sanctioned sanctioned meaning punished, but they do exhibit a lot of the types of behaviors that normally the Democrats have been criticizing. And I would say that now we've kind of seen the Democrats shift very, very sharply in terms of their relations with the Jewish community and their tolerance of certain statements that in the past they didn't really condone or tolerate. It doesn't really, I don't think it really is an issue right now of whether she is or not or is not anti-Semitic. I think that, you know, I think that that's kind of a debate that's a little it's kind of separate from this, but let's talk a little bit about the BDS laws themselves, the anti-BDS laws. I already have written for the King David's Journal an opinion that those laws would probably be struck down if brought to federal or Supreme Court. This isn't because I support BDS. This isn't because I oppose Israel. I am, my parents were both Israeli. My mom passed away, but and I did serve in the Israeli army. I have a lot of friends and family who have served in it, and I am just expressing the opinion that the court would probably knock it down. It's not a good strategy, and that the proper response to BDS is to make a good case for correct and good relations with Israel. Also, I've said several times, I don't think that the foreign aid relationship between the U.S. or any other country, including Israel, is a proper model, and that we should strive to end that relationship and get Israel off of our foreign aid, along with other countries like Colombia, Turkey, and Egypt. So with that being said, I think you guys know what my position is. Rashida Tlaib, it says here that she accused the measure's supporters of dual loyalty, meaning the anti-BDS bill. They forgot what country they represent, the Michigan Democrat and unapologetic BDS supporter tweeted. And then they go into some of the other issues that the bill covers, which include reimposing sanctions on entities funding the Syrian government, strengthening the U.S.-Jordan relationship, which I don't know why a bill would do that. That's more up to the State Department than Congress. And codify a memo of understanding with Israel. I think personally that in many ways, the Israeli, the Israeli supporters, they've become very focused on influencing the relations of the U.S. with Israel through Congress. And for many years, it was successful. And in fact, I've read a number of criticisms of it, both from pro-Palestinian people and from libertarian people. I don't think that all of their criticisms are justified, but I think that the way that model of the relationship is going to look down the road, it's not going to be sustainable. You do have attitudes within the Democratic Party, especially, where increasingly they're going to reject the need to have a strong military relationship with Israel, and it's just not sustainable. I think that the better way to strengthen relationship is through trade. And I think that that's the way for almost any relationship. In fact, I think that that's one of the reasons the foreign aid model, the that our relationship with the Palestinian Authority is not so good, because they're basically a dependent. The Israeli government is also in many ways dependent, and they talk about their dependency, and I think it's basically a mockery of everything that a healthy bilateral relationship between two countries should be. Um, some oppose it on the belief that restricting BDS limits First Amendment's free speech rights, but Talib just couldn't stop there. So I would say that I oppose it on the grounds that, very similarly, I don't think that the First Amendment provides that those things can be prohibited. Some of the things that these BDS laws combat, and this would be a federal one. So I think the federal one would be a major problem, and the people supporting this bill, I think, don't know what type of trap they're walking into. American Jews have long been slandered with charges of dual loyalty for their support of Israel. Activists such as Linda Sarsour hurl it more and more often these days. It was used against opponents of the Iran nuclear deal and supporters of the war in Iraq. Now, I would say that I have no love lost between me and supporters of the war in Iraq. I think that in retrospect, a lot of these people are to blame for all of the hatred that people have against them. The Iraq war supporters. Let me make that clear. A lot of the Iraq war supporters behaved in an arrogant and high-handed way during the run-up to the war. And I was in high school at the time. I wasn't exactly politically active, but they actually behaved as if the people who oppose the war are not being patriotic, when in reality, I think anybody has the right to skepticism, even if they do have a lot of other radical ideas. That doesn't necessarily validate your proposal that we go to war in a country over there in the Middle East that, it's led to a lot of loss of life for Iraqis, a lot of loss of life for Americans. And I've fought a lot of people who are conservative, and also a lot of people who are pro-Israel about it. I stand by my position that it was a mistake, and that's one of the reasons I didn't vote in 2004 for either President Bush or John Kerry. And in any case, so Rashida Tlaib, she's in a lot of hot water because of the dual loyalty comment. They forgot what country they represent, she said. I think that is kind of a call for that type of that type of supposition. Now, ironically, the pro-Palestine side here is Canary Mission. They were complaining the previous day about how the pro-Israel people were ridiculing Rashida Tlaib, and they made like a big deal about a post by Adam Milstein, who is a very, very pro-Israel figure. He heads the Israeli American Committee or Israeli American Council, and he made a post, and apparently a lot of the people responding to the post said a number of derogatory things about Palestinians and Muslims. Now, I want to say this. If the Electronic Intifada has a problem with commenters on their posts, I think that they should kind of deal with it. Nobody has the right to, criticize other people solely based on certain things that the commenters say. I mean, we can take a look. Let's see what people have said on some of the videos that the Electronic Intifada. So they disable comments on their video. So that I think is the mark of the coward. You cannot criticize people for making comments on someone else's videos or someone else's commentary piece when you yourself don't allow comments on yours. And I think that that's really a problem when we're seeing. I mean, I don't think you can even dislike this video. There's no like or dislike ratio, but there is 9,000 views. So I think that's kind of the issue, that neither side of the Israel-Palestine advocacy uh, gulf, neither side of them actually accepts any criticism for their behavior. And it's really one of the reasons that I think that this is one of the dark corners of free speech, the Israel-Palestine debate in American and Western society at large. So there's a number of reactions that are going through the media on this. Some people are saying, well, can you really criticize somebody else for dual loyalty, Rashida Tlaib, because you're all the time, repping for the Palestinians and whatever. I think that's a fair criticism. Okay, I think that when you criticize other people for dual loyalty, you have to just um, you have to kind of show that you're different. And I don't think she is. I think personally she might be one of the most um, polarizing people that's come to Washington. She's like nails on a chalkboard for some people. And people just have to exercise their own self-control. Now, this is kind of where I see people have a point with what they're saying about her statement. So this was an interview in 2015 on NPR with Diane Rehm, with Senator Bernie Sanders when he was running for president. And I want to show you this just to give you an idea of why it is that this charge of dual loyalty can be used in order to discredit Jewish politicians usually.
Senator, you have dual citizenship with Israel.
Well, no, I do not have dual citizenship with Israel. I'm an American. I don't know where that question came from. I am an American citizen, and I have visited Israel on a couple of occasions. No, I'm an American citizen, period.
I understand from a list we have gotten that you were on that list. No. Forgive me if that is.
Now, that's some of the nonsense that goes on in the Internet, but that is absolutely not true.
Are there members of Congress who do have dual citizenship, or is that part of the fable?
I honestly don't know, but I have read that on the Internet. My dad came to this country from Poland at the age of 17 without a nickel in his pocket, loved this country. I get offended a little bit by that comment, and I know it's been on the Internet. I am obviously an American citizen, and I do not have any dual citizenship.
All right. Tell me your feeling about whether there should be a two-state solution.
Okay, so they moved on from that comment, and Bernie Sanders is on record. The rest of the clip isn't really that relevant. He is on record supporting the two-state solution. But PolitiFact actually checked this, and it turns out he didn't have dual citizenship. It says, on today's show, I made a mistake, she wrote, rather than asking Senator and presidential candidate Bernie Sanders whether he had dual U.S.-Israeli citizenship, as I had read in a comment on Facebook. I stated it as fact. He corrected me, saying he did not know where the question came from. I apologize immediately. I want to apologize as well to all our listeners for having made it an erroneous statement. I'm sorry for the mistake. However, I'm glad to play a role in putting this rumor to rest. That sounds like Donald Trump's response to the birther controversy. Donald Trump, you remember, for years he was promoting this theory that Obama might have been born in Kenya, and then when he finally renounced it, he said, well, I ended the controversy. It was kind of a very strange and stupid thing. Not that I have a problem with people talking about it, but the fact that Trump focused on it. In reality, the claim that a wide variety of high political officials, including members of the House and Senate, are actually dual U.S.-Israeli citizens have been circulating around the internet for the better part of a decade. We figured it was a good time to take a closer look at the issue. So it says, from what we can tell, lists claiming that top Jewish political officials were dual citizens with Israel first began to pop up in the wake of the Iraq War. At the time, they were focused on the notion that Jewish officials in the administration of President George W. Bush had pushed for the war in the Middle East at the behest of Israel. For the record, Sanders was against the war, so I don't think it's necessarily the same. For instance, a Facebook post titled List of Politicians with Israeli Dual Citizenship appeared as early as 2007 and was periodically reposted later. So let's take a look at that one. if it's even up. So that was in 2011, and I don't even know if I can scroll here. So you have Michael Mukasey, Paul Wolfowitz, Michael Chertoff, and this person says, I obtained this list on the web, but I don't see here any link. John Bolton is not a citizen for sure. You can see here. Yeah, so, there's no sourcing to it. So if they're using a Facebook post, for example, on this one, so it says including a current, so the post listed more than 36 such dual Israeli American citizens, including Attorney General Michael Mukasey. I think Michael Mukasey might even be Arab American. I don't believe he's Jewish at all. I think I saw him on TV last year or something. So this is kind of a very bizarre accusation. I think he might be like Egyptian or something. I don't know. Apparently he is Jewish. Whatever. so, so then Paul Wolfowitz, Doug Feith, Josh Bolton, Ken Millman, and a host of ambassadors. The common thread apparently was that they all were or were believed to be Jewish. Sanders wasn't on this initial list, but his name began appearing around 2012 in a variety of posts with headlines such as Israeli dual citizens in the U.S. Congress and the Obama administration. A common version included 22 officials currently or previously with the Obama administration, 27 House members, and 13 senators, including Sanders. The authors of these posts cribbed their list of Jewish lawmakers from a 2011 article in Jewish Currents, a nonprofit progressive Jewish media project. The Jewish Currents article acknowledged that some of its readers, who are generally left of center, might be, quote, nervous about drawing attention to Jewish lawmakers. Such caution may have been merited. In one case, a version of the list of politicians with dual U.S.-Israeli citizenship was posted on the website of the American Freedom Party, an organization that fights for the heritage, identity, and rights of ethnic European communities. So that would be kind of like these white nationalist groups. The key assumption in all these posts that if someone is Jewish, they're automatically a citizen of Israel is simply wrong. So somebody actually posted this earlier today. It's somebody who was a Trump supporter, by the way. And I responded to him saying something essentially like what they're saying here. So this is what they say on PolitiFact. It stems from misreading of the law of return originally passed by Israel in 1950 and subsequently amended. According to the law, with a few exceptions, an immigration visa shall be granted to every Jew who has expressed his desire to settle in Israel. A certificate of citizenship will be granted to those who wish to live in Israel permanently. In other words, a Jewish American, whether a politician or not, will typically be granted Israeli citizenship if they seek it out. Israeli citizenship is not conferred to them simply by being Jewish. According to the confusion, some of the commentary we found on the internet suggested that any Jewish person received Israeli citizenship automatically once they touched down on Israeli soil. If that were true, any lawmaker who went on an official visit to Israel, and many of them have, would have become a dual citizen, perhaps without even knowing it. So this is that's why people have to understand there's a difference, and that's what usually the Palestinian community would probably talk about. They often try to say, well, we don't criticize the Jews, we criticize the Zionists, or we criticize the Israelis. So I have Israeli citizenship by virtue of my dad being one and my mom having Israeli citizenship. Not by virtue of the fact that I was Jewish, because there's plenty of people I know who had to, they had to basically apply for it and get their citizenship, and that's a different process. Adding to the confusion, some of the commentary we found on the internet suggested. So we read through that. This too is not true. Applying for citizenship under the law of return is a formal procedure which you could expect normally to take a number of months, except under emergency conditions, said Yoram Hazony, president of the Herzl Institute of Jerusalem think tank. There is no such thing as receiving Israeli citizenship without submitting a formal request to the Israeli government. Indeed, guidance from the Jewish Agency, a nonprofit group that coordinates immigration into Israel, lists a number of required steps, including an online application, the filing of documentation, and an interview. The Israeli embassy in Washington did not return emails for this article. Maybe they should have. It's probably due to the fact that Israelis have horrible customer service. Yigal Palmore, a spokesman for the Jewish Agency, told Pundit Fact that to contend that citizenship is granted automatically by simply setting foot on Israeli soil is beyond preposterous. There's no such procedure anywhere in the world, and it could not be implemented even if anyone wanted to, for legal, administrative, and practical reasons. It is also worth noting that the U.S. government doesn't look especially kindly on dual citizenship. The United States recognizes that dual nationality exists, but does not encourage it as a matter of policy because of the problems it may cause, according to the Department of State. If an American citizen applies for foreign citizenship voluntarily, they may lose U.S. nationality if there is evidence through their statements or conduct that they intend to give up their U.S. citizenship. Sanders' case. So has Sanders ever taken action to claim the Israeli citizenship he would qualify for? He told Ream no, and we have no evidence that would call it into question. While Sanders is Jewish by birth and spent some time on an Israeli kibbutz or community farm in the early 1960s, he would not have become a citizen without a concerted effort to become one. We did not hear back from Sanders' office, but a spokesman, Michael Briggs, told Politico that Diane Ream is an excellent radio host. There's a great big internet out there with lots of good and bad information. I've never heard the question come up before. Hazoni, an Israeli who studied at Princeton and Rutgers and who has written widely about both American and Israeli politics, that he's not aware of any American lawmakers with Israeli citizenship. In fact, it is common for Jews who are dual U.S. Israeli citizens to renounce one or the other before serving in official government capacities, he said. So I would say this. I know I use that line a lot, but if somebody has evidence that Sanders, for example, is an Israeli citizen, they would have to first of all show that he has what's called a Teudat Zahut, which is the identity paper. That would look like okay. This is what it would look like. So I'll show you an image. If this fucking internet will work. So basically, you see this. This is the identity card. And you see they would have a number. This would be the personal ID number, similar to your social security card. It would have your date of birth. I believe it still has your. It might still have your religion. I think that would appear here, and that's about it. So that's how. Let me see here. This is a driver's license. You can see this is the one that I remember. So it would look something like that, and you have the Hebrew date and then the date of issuance. So I don't know why this idiot put his ID card on the internet, but I guess you guys have it now. So you know that he is one. Now, there's another story that came out that Angela Davis had her award revoked from the city of Birmingham. It's the BCRI, I guess, Birmingham Civil Rights Institute, partly because of her BDS actions. And I would say this is, again, nobody cares whether Angela Davis gets some award from some city, whether it's in Alabama or what. It doesn't matter. There's no reason. There's no reason that the Israel advocacy movement should care that she's getting an award. What they're doing is essentially they're shining a huge flashlight on areas where, you know, they're basically telling people what to think about the conflict without actually making the case. And you can read this article, and I think if you look at the comments, and these are people from Alabama, A lot of people are just incensed about this. Okay. There were a lot of people who are who were basically saying earlier that this basically says who runs the show, and they use the often repeated trope, to know who has power, learn who you're not allowed to criticize. So that's about it. I think that this whole fight over the BDS movement, it's ridiculous. I don't think that it should be held in Congress. I think the BDS movement is a failure. And until I see any proof that it's actually working, and until I think that we have to basically change the paradigm of this relationship. And I'm not going to take any sort of talking to from either side of the issue. So please, if you have any comments, if you have your own point of view, please put a comment. I'm perfectly willing to listen to anyone, even if they have, kind of an extreme point of view. Uh, you can even come on the show and debate me, or at least present what you're talking about. So please like this video, subscribe to the channel, share the video. Also subscribe to me on CocoScope and on BitChute and all of the other social media below, especially Gab. I am a big fan of Gab. Mine's too. And have a great night.